Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. You're very welcome. We'll just give a couple of minutes for people joining. I've got a lovely little baby here. I'm feeding at the same time.
Hi. Hi.
Good.
Hello, Janet. It's Janet Corey.
Yeah.
Hello. Lovely to see familiar faces. We've got a large number joining us this morning, so we'll just give a couple of minutes for the technical side.
While we're waiting, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat,
Yeah.
where you're joining from, and what kind of community growing activity you're involved in.
Miriam, if you just say that we can start whenever you've got everybody in.
Yeah, everybody's in, and I guess more people will be joining in the next few minutes.
Okay.
We have 40 people here now. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, good morning, everybody. A big welcome from Social Farms and Gardens to our joint online event with our sister organisation, Community Gardens Ireland. Social Farms and Gardens in Northern Ireland has been delivering a growing resilience project for the last 5 years, connecting all community growers across Northern Ireland. And it became obvious about year 3 that we should be connecting across the island of Ireland. So we were delighted when Conor O'Kane, our staff member in Social Farms and Gardens, was on the committee of Community Gardeners Ireland. So we were successful with a small grant to begin this work, but the relationships have grown, and we have held the annual online events for the last couple of years, and it's just great to connect across the island. Our project was about building skills and capacity across the sector, and we all know how important that is, because in our generation, my generation, you would have had a farmer or a grower in the family, but this generation often don't. And that connection with how you grow and with the soil and with nature can easily be disappearing. So it's important that we're building skills at all levels. We have to turn around nature consumerism to nature custodianism, if that's a word. We need to be custodians of our soils and our nature around us. So this morning, we're really delighted that the topic is food education and how we harness these skills. If we're going to have a renaissance in market gardening, which our food system badly needs, so that we're eating food that is grown not too far away from us, we have to value the skills and understand that it's complex to grow. It's not easy. It is trial and error, and very much depends on your conditions. So we have to value those skills, and that's what we're doing this morning, concentrating on food education. So I'm going to hand over to Donal, the chair of Community Gardens Ireland, just to say a welcome as well. Lovely to see you all here.
Thanks, Patricia. Just want to welcome everyone as well on behalf of Community Gardens Ireland to our annual online gathering of community growers. My name is Donal McCormick. I am based in Blessington, County Wicklow. If anyone doesn't know who Community Gardens Ireland as a committee or as an organisation are, so we're made up of people who are involved with local community projects throughout the island of Ireland. We're all volunteers, so we're giving up our time to help promote and advocate for more allotments and community gardens. And actually, everyone here today is giving up your time as well. So just thank you for everyone who's taken their time today to present, to prepare something, or even to get involved and to get the discussions going on allotments and community gardens throughout Ireland. Thank you to the Community Gardens Ireland Committee and Social Farming Gardens Northern Ireland team members for the hard work on actually getting this up and running over the last number of months. This type of event doesn't happen by accident. And also thank you all for listening at home or wherever you are out and about today. As Patricia said, this is our third year of holding a joint online event between our two organisations. We started this event during COVID-19 and it's actually grown dramatically since we started. In 2022, we had about 62 people who registered for the event. Last year, it doubled to 149, and the current numbers for today was in around 216 people had actually registered for this event. We're going to get more people coming in as you kind of go on as they go on throughout the day. This is now the largest annual gathering of community growers in the island of Ireland. So yeah, there's a lot to get through, but it's going to be a great event. Patricia also mentioned that a couple of years ago, our two organisations, we set out with an intention of working together more, and I'm so proud that we've continued this work into this year. In previous years, we did have a grant to directly support the activity that we're doing, but even though we don't have that direct funding at the moment, this event is so important to us because it helps us to bring communities together, and we do this event because we believe in it. The theme for the 2024 Spring Gathering is food education, and one thing I think we can all agree on is how being outdoors and working as a community means we're always learning, we're always exploring, and we're always growing. We want to encourage people to come together and to grow food, not hate. This is something that's even more important in a world that's experiencing dual climate change and biodiversity emergencies. For Community Gardens Ireland, we're also facing a year of elections. I'd urge anyone who's interested in the elections coming up in the south to check out our Plant for the Future campaign on our website, cgireland.org. It has a list of some fairly simple community, climate and biodiversity friendly ideas that you can ask election candidates in the local and European elections this year. We're going to hear some absolutely amazing speakers, some presentations and videos over the next 2 hours. The entire event is recorded, as you'll have seen when you entered, so that if you have to jump off and you have to go and do something, don't worry, we'll be putting the entire event up on our YouTube over the coming days. And lastly, just to call out a thank you to everyone who has donated towards the Community Gardens Ireland operating costs when signing up to this event. We're a national organisation, but we're a voluntary organisation, and we actually end up falling between a few stools as a result of this. So actually, we receive no funding whatsoever. So every donation that we receive actually helps us towards our operating costs. So thank you for that. Just to kind of start off, we'd like to just get a photo of everyone. So if we just kind of ask if people can just throw on their cameras just for the next minute and smile and wave, and then we kind of move on immediately to the first speaker, please. So, okay, everyone smile and wave.
Who's taking the pictures?
I'm taking a few screenshots.
Brilliant.
Now, got that out of the way. Great, thanks everyone. We're going to move on now to our first speaker. So what we like to do each year on this is to get a sense of what makes each garden and each kind of community growing project tick. So I'd just like to introduce for Connacht, Katrina McCarthy. She's involved with the Edible Landscape Project in Westport and County Mayo.
How's it going, Connor? Really appreciate that, and really delighted that you asked us to be talking here today on behalf of Edible Landscape Project. So I have a quick presentation to show you, and if you have any questions afterwards, you just might come back to me by email. Yeah. So Edible Landscape Project, actually next slide please. We're an education and training organisation, and we're based in Westport in County Mayo. So we registered last year as a charity, really important, as you'll see later on, in the education space, particularly when it comes to kids. Before that, we were a social enterprise. Well, we're still a social enterprise. And previous to that, about 10 years ago, we started off as a small little education group. So next slide, please. And our remit really is teaching groups how to make climate smart food choices. And the two main groups we work with in terms of education are with school groups and community groups. Next slide, please. The whole problem that we were finding with kids, particularly during COVID, was the issue with climate, and kids did not know where to engage. There was such a problem. If the family couldn't afford to buy an electric car, or they couldn't afford to buy solar panels, there was levels of climate anxiety were rising, a lot of coverage on the radio. So we look at food, and that's where our focus is. And you know, according to Project Drawdown in 2019, 5 of the top 20 solutions to climate revolve around food. And that's our starting and end point. Next slide, please. And what we do, and this is really critical, is we're promoting behavioural change. So we want people to come to our workshops, either the kids groups or the community groups. And by the end of the workshops, that what groups will have learned when it comes to food and food growing and food security is that they will have learned to have changed their behavior, and that results in a lower carbon footprint and greater levels of food security in the areas in which we're working. Next slide, please. And really, the food choices we all make every day affect the climate, either positively, excuse me, or negatively. Now that slide there, I mean, we're not going to be growing bananas in Belmullet, but we certainly grow strawberries, and there's no need to be flying in strawberries, you know, from miles and miles away, when we can actually learn to start growing them ourselves. Next slide, please. And this is really why I'm here to talk to you today. So the education program. So we have a primary schools program at the moment. So we have everything we do revolves around a food forest, and this is our systems thinking for kids, we like to call it. So we have developed a set of curriculum-linked lesson plans, and the areas we cover are sustainable soil management, water management, biodiversity, food miles, and at the moment we're actually collaborating with Munster Technological University. We'd like to expand this program out to include the full circular economy for food. So since we got our status as our charitable status, it has opened a huge amount of doors for us to allow us to expand our education program. Next slide, please. And how this works. So if any of you are interested in this, we started in Westport. We developed the food forest, the education program for the primary schools in Westport, and we started working with schools locally, Westport, Castlebar. And now then we started moving into geographic clusters. So Tara, who I think a lot of you know, who's involved in CGI, Tara Cosgrove, Tara's our schools coordinator. So there are 5 schools, 5 primary schools, Enniscrone, Eastleigh, around Ballina, and that worked really well. So how it works is the school decides they want to get involved. The lesson plans are made available. We have quite a good website if you want more information on it. There's lesson plans downloadable from the website for the teachers. We ask for one person from each school, either a parent or a teacher, to engage with Tara and identify a site, and then the school and Tara decide on a date when the food forest workshop happens. The kids come out and plant the food forest, and all the lesson plans then are based around that. Next slide, please. And there's some really nice pictures there. There's Tara with the group. I think that could be a Ballina group, Tara. Castlebar kids there on the left-hand side. They were one of the first schools. So the kids absolutely love it. It is full engagement. A lot of these kids would be farming kids. They come, I know there was one little fellow who came in and he had all the gear on him. He dug a hole from here to Australia to put the apple tree. They actually had to fill it in after him. He dug it so much. The kids just love it. And it's full engagement, and they're learning as they're out and about. Next slide, please. So the impact per school, then, it's no cost to get involved in this. But again, we're coming back to that behavioural impact of the
okay, I have it. Okay, but thanks, bye-bye.
The behavioural impact of the people who are involved. So really, and we're looking to measure this more. So we have a lot more collaborations going on at the moment, but we want to be able to measure this more. So there's a change in food purchasing habits is what we would hope particularly given the food miles aspect to the program. So we would hope, because kids have a very strong influence over the weekly shop. So we're hoping, and from initial feedback, the kids who get involved in the programs will actually influence parents in the weekly shop for more locally sourced foods, increased interest in growing. So we want, even if people start growing a little bit, take the pressure off the system, whether they're growing herbs or lettuce or something that they like, that through our workshops, they start to grow a little bit and at least start to grow something. Obviously, we're hoping for increased levels of climate anxiety in the kids, because that has been so high in recent years, and then leading to an increased climate activism.
Just a reminder for everyone, can you just please put yourself on mute just while the speaker is talking. Thank you.
That'd be great. Thanks a million. And ultimately coming back to increase local levels of food security. And we're finding where we have school groups and community groups in one area that are involved and engaged with our programs, it really bolsters the effect of both programs, because more food forests are built and there's just more education and knowledge around the area of sustainable food growing and sustainable food buying. Next slide, please. So this is our other area that we're focusing on, is the community education program. And we've started planting, well, over the last number of years, we've planted a number of mini food forests around Westport with local groups. Next slide again, please. Actually, could we just mute that, because I think there's a lot of noise coming in there.
Peggy Baxter needs to mute.
Sorry.
Thanks a million.
Give me a second and I'll just check. Could
Thanks,
everybody
Millie.
just make sure that they're on mute? We're having some problems with the controls. Okay. Here we go.
Okay, thank you very much. So the community groups, similar, it's a very similar program to the schools groups. The groups plant a food forest. It can go bigger, can go up to 5 meters by 5 meters. Similar topics are covered. The groups are out planting. There's a food forest that we planted. It's it's actually double that size now, but that was the original food forest in Westport in 2017. And we call this Systems Thinking for Adults. The kids program is Systems Thinking for Kids, because this is a system. I mean, we believe that one of the foremost reasons for climate change is we've stopped thinking in terms of systems and we're thinking in silos. Whereas the system and the way the food forest is planted is a system, and we're reintroducing that notion of systems thinking back into mainstream education. Next slide, please. The next slide. Brilliant. So that is the food forest. It's out 2024, but that was actually last summer. And it's just amazing. And it's a perennial garden. It's right beside the annual garden. It's in Westport. It's a teaching garden. Every mistake in the book has been made, but it is such an amazing spot for showing people what can be done. Next slide, please. And this is what, this is why it's so important that I'm here. I'm so happy to be here talking to you guys today, because everything that we do is all about collaboration. So collaborating with Munster Technology University, collaborating with Westport Tidy Towns. The most recent collaboration we're involved in, and this is my very last slide, is with Trinity. So we're working with Westport Tidy Towns here, and we want to develop a community food security program within Westport using mini food forests as the way of doing that. So since we got our charitable status, we have been able to do this. We've been able to grow our program. There is more funding now becoming available for projects like ours. As I said, if you'd like to get in touch, have a look at our website, and thanks for having me here today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Katrina. It was excellent. We're not taking questions now. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the 4 presentations and then going to get some questions for each of the projects that we've seen. But thank you for your presentation. One thing to highlight as well, if anyone is posting any photos or any details about our gathering to social media, can you please use the hashtags, be hashtag Community Growing Ireland and hashtag Spring Gathering 2024. So the details of that are in the chat. Next up then, for Leinster, we have Gary Clark from the Louth Urban Food Sanctuary.
Yeah, Gary's not able to join us today, but he pre-recorded a film for us, which Miriam is going to share now. There's some really, really interesting stuff on this, so bear with it.
Hi, I'm Gary Clark. I'm the Community and Business Development Manager at Creative Sparks Enterprise Fab Lab in Dundalk, County Louth. And I'm delighted to be here to speak at the 3rd annual online gathering of Community Gardens Ireland and Social Farms and Gardens Northern Ireland. So thank you to Molly Garvey for inviting me to speak. The, I suppose, relevance for me in what you guys are doing is with the project which I'm the project manager for, which is the Louth Urban Food Sanctuary. So these are the main partners who are taking part in the project. DKIT, which is our local Institute of Technology, ourselves here at Creative Spark and Louth County Council. Just to give you some background, so on July 2023, 5.8 million worth of funding for creative, cultural and artistic initiatives under the new Creative Climate Action Fund 2 were released. There are 2 strands to that. So strand 1 is the Spark, which is smaller grants, which are between 20,000 and 50,000 euros for projects to be delivered between the summer of last year and the end of this year. The Ignite strand 2, and that looks at bigger projects from 50k up to 250,000. And there are longer projects as well going on to the end of 2025. So our project is part of Strand 1, Spark. So we were awarded 48,000 euros. We were one of 43 successful applications to this funding call. So the Creative Ireland programme is supported by the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. And Creative Ireland is an all of government culture and wellbeing programme with the goal of inspiring and transforming people, places and communities through creativity. So looking at our specific project, we are examining the impact of climate change on food cultivation in our local area, County Louth. Another kind of main aspect is empowering people and communities in the towns along the Dundalk Bay and across County Louth to enhance local food resilience in the response to climate change. It's also to embrace the unique regional climate and maximising our ability to evolve and use the climate to our advantage. Often we are fighting the climate and perhaps it's time to start using it to our advantage and things like that. So it's a research-based project, and it'll also look at the impact of increasing cultural diversity on the types of foods that we're interested in buying, and the types of foods that new communities in Ireland are interested in seeing on their shelves or producing themselves, fostering micro-geographic food security. I suppose the important thing for us to say, or for me to say, is that there is quite a lot in this project. There are a lot of things being looked at with a very limited kind of budget. So what we'd like to do is use this as a platform to get onto Strand 2 funding if there's more funding coming down the line at the end of this year. So the project goals would be obviously encouraging local food cultivation and consumption, identifying and promoting Irish heritage and international vegetable and fruit varieties that would be suitable for the changing climate. We want to engage with new migrant communities to integrate their food traditions. We're collaborating with DKIT creative media students to create digital content and track the project development. We're also working with the agri-science students who are going to do soil analysis before and after on all of the community gardens and home growers that are involved in the project. So that will analyse the impact, if any, on the soil to pH, organic matter, soil biodiversity, etc. We're also looking at collaborating with the DKIT hospitality students on devising recipes based on what comes out of the programme. We're also facilitating training programs, workshops and lectures on gardening, food cultivation and climate. We also have, as it's creative climate action funding, there has to be a creative element to it. So we have artists on board who are cataloging the project both visually and generating other types of materials. Like, for example, we have a growing calendar now as well that will be printed soon, and we'd be happy to share that out. Also about promoting local food producers to maybe think about looking at other types of foods that could now work with our changing climate. So yeah, adapting our places to climate change, helping people rethink their lifestyles, understanding the changing climate, and improving our relationship and knowledge of food cultivation. They're the kind of core themes. The main groups that are involved with the project are residents and growers in County Louth, migrant communities who we're engaging with on an ongoing basis and getting their input on picking what produce are going to be taking part in the project, where to grow, how to grow, DKIT and their obviously increasingly diverse student population as well, and then creative and horticultural communities, as well as a commercial farm in County Louth who are on board, who've given us a farm of 7 acres to dedicate to the project as well. So that would be Tony McGuinness, who's our commercial farmer, who's been a fantastic help and resource within this project so far, and we're really excited to see what comes out over in RD. These are just the people who are involved in the project in terms of the climate: Fiona Lennon, Rory Sheehan at Louth County Council, Siobhan Jordan in DKIT, and Roisin Cotter, and all of us, of course, have a role to play. On the creative side, Emer McNally is heading up doing the visual arts and workshops. Pamela Whitaker is also doing public garden based installations and talks. Melissa Hayes, DKIT, Creative Arts and Media, and ourselves here, Creative Spark, also. The other aspect of this is the cultural. So we want to engage with the migrant community, discover what kind of foods they find it difficult to find here, what their opinion on local produce is, which isn't always fantastic, but probably better than it might have been some years ago, and what they'd like to see available here. So that has really shaped a lot of the things that have kind of come along with the project. Not all of them have been successful in terms of selecting the produce for the Louth Urban Food Sanctuary project, but there are just some practical things that we need to take into account, which kind of knocked some of the candidate food types out. We're engaging with the local population as well to try the cultivation of the selected produce. This is also about engaging people who never have grown before, people who obviously are established in growing or have some familiarity with growing at home already, and then the community gardens, which are a fantastic resource for social aspects, for educational, for nurturing communities. It's just incredible. I'm not from a background of growing food produce, so it's absolutely it's been eye-opening and really positive for me so far being involved in this project. And then we want to also bring useful tutorials to the public and project community on how to plant, how to tend to whatever produce they're cultivating, when and how to produce, and then recipes which utilize the fruit of this cultivation and project. So this is something that's already ongoing and working within the project. So here are just some fun snaps from an event we did with Pamela back in September in the Blackrock community garden. We have a community table. There was all sorts of different homegrown food produce there, and just kind of trying new things and seeing what works and what doesn't. So yeah, we launched on October 13th. We had a planting of garlic here. We had a lot artists live illustrating, as you can see there. We had community tables and food from a local grower. We also have done a planting of produce test. So planting at the wrong time of year, we planted runner beans and lettuce chard and kale and things like that. And actually, you wouldn't believe how successful some of those things were, considering the time of year they went in. It is a little bit scary, actually. So yeah, in November then we had a Samhain event, and then we did 3 separate filming events with DKIT students in RD, Carricarnan and Blackrock. So yeah, just some images there with Tony McGuinness there, the commercial farmer in his warehouses, and then across some of the community gardens. So what is the produce? So where we're at right now is, and we obviously understand some of these, many of these can grow here in Ireland. So yeah, we unfortunately couldn't get access to some of the produce we wanted to in time. So we've decided to go ahead with the produce there: garlic, ginger, turmeric, bok choy, peas, sweet potato, and chili peppers, with some companion flowers. And then the commercial farmer will be growing navy beans, sunflower, and corn on the cob. So thank you to ISSA for all the support and advice they've given us throughout the project, and trying to source the right things. So yeah, just these are the kind of people who are on board across the project. We've actually an event on the 2nd, which is today, I suppose, for you, as this is being played. So yeah, we've got actually far more home growers now involved in the project. So that's why this is a pre-recorded message. So we have a seed day, as you can see there, on the 2nd of March, and then we're going to have a whole host of events throughout the year. This is just a kind of an outline. There'll be climate talks. We're going to do an event for sweet potato planting. There's going to be a workshop. Hopefully one of the Irish Seed Savers Association can come up and talk to our groups. And harvesting events, culinary events will involve the DKIT Culinary Arts Department, and so on. So yeah, look, I've probably spoken more than enough, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys, and I'd love to be able to attend myself this event, because I feel like I'd probably learn a lot. But yeah, we have a clash there for today. But if you want to ask me any questions, or if you have anything, yeah, any advice or anything you want to share with me, that would be fantastic. So thank you very much.
It's great. Listen, Gary isn't here, as mentioned, but it's a fantastic presentation by himself and about the Louth Urban Food Sanctuary. So a huge thanks to him to spend the time to put that together. As mentioned, we're going to be taking questions at the end of the 4 presentations. So next up, we have Munster, and we have St. Bernadette's School in Cork, and I think there's a video prepared by Kevin Byrne, Sarah O'Connell, and Denise Lynch.
Hello there, this is Kevin from School Bernadette rather than St. Bernadette. Thanks for having us on. Anyway, it's very good, very interesting to the 2 presentations today. I'd just like to say before they show our video that just from the point of view of School Bernadette, it's all about, you know, creativity, well-being, sustainability, being inclusive and accessible, as we're a special school. So we have students with a wide range of differences. Mental and physical, so we can get them all in. Our garden really shows all those things in one place. But thank our 2 garden teachers from the past, Donal O'Regan and now Denise Lynch, who have built this garden with their bare hands, their blood, sweat and tears, and how it all links together with our home economics, our science. Sarah is on there from our science, and we've had all sorts of visitors to the garden recently. We've had to catch a couple of foxes, and the person who caught them from us released them in Waterford. Sorry, Waterford, or well done, Waterford. Thanks for taking them. With lots of birds and everything, and it's an absolutely brilliant place for our students to learn. And so far, they are really enjoying it. Apologies for the video. It's the springtime, so there's a lot of weeding and things that we hadn't done. But sure, we're all gardeners. We know what it's like. So if you want to play it there, it's about 6 minutes long, and if the captions are on, you can actually hear the voices of the students and you know what they're saying. Some of them are a little difficult to understand at times. Okay, thank you.
Our school garden is made up of lots of different areas, all of which are outdoor classrooms for our school. SRCA Passerly Garden was created an ARK and out of historic kindness, while nature has a place to grow in this garden. We have a dedicated for little nature insects, a bird bath, birds, feeders, bird camera in a bird box for our wild birds. We also plant wildflowers and spring bubbles for the bees. This garden also has seated for the class to sit outside and enjoy nature. We hope to add a small pond to this area, also as well as river access. Our school also have a polytunnel with its own water timer system for the summer, but we have water by hand also. We grows a lot of crops here all year round that are used in home economics as well as sent home as gifts. This time of the year we have winter crops such as rocket, lettuce, turnips and charge growing all around our polytunnel. Targers are doing a landscaping project and we are creating a fairy garden which will have lots of flowers. They're growing all year round for our bee friends.
Near our polytunnel, we also have raspberries growing, as well as blackberries and strawberries growing. We grow pumpkins and potatoes in this area also during the year, and it's surrounded by apple trees and a pear tree. We also have a seated area and tableware, which is perfect for outdoor classes in warmer weather. In this area, there's also a bird bath, bird feeder, and we hope to put a small pond there too. Close by also are rhubarb plants, which are for lovely tarts.
Composting is very important in our school as we want to help the environment by buying in lease farm manure and create your own compost. We have 3 big wood composter for green waste and leaf mold for leaves and a metal paste for our food waste. We also have water wash we place through the school to collect water.
Fellow 1. Look at the school lot meant where they are growing food. For the should grow it, cook it and eat it. At this time of the year, we have leeks or in apples and plums. Growing the garden plants, that means they can rest and enjoy nature after all the hard work.
I'll to looking after all the planters across the school and the area has strawberries growing in recycled tiles. They decorated. They will be also be planting the seed planters. They are well with hops and flowers in the coming weeks. It also has a seeded area to enjoy the outdoors.
At the front of our school is our newest garden with raised beds and a range of crops grown here. At this time of the year, we have kale, cabbage, onions, garlic, spinach, and we plan to grow beans and potatoes here next. One of the beds is also a herb patch project bed, which links in with a range of projects for first years. This area also has a seated area, which is lovely for an outdoor class with first years or second years. We hope to add to this area with willow hedging.
Over the last 4 years, including loss of native trees such as an oak, woolly, hazel, holly, bush and hawthorn.
We are hoping to develop this area further to include a large pond to attract more wildlife.
Kevin, that was brilliant. Thank you. Big fan of the Star Wars writing at the end in particular. But no, that was an excellent video. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks for showing it.
The theme, as we said, was for this year is food education, and there's so much that we can all learn from that. So again, thank you. One other thing just to highlight before we go on to the next speaker, that there was a comment in there about soil health. I'd just like to remind everyone that we are the Community Gardens Ireland. We're hosting a national event for National Allotments and Community Gardens Week. It's running from the 12th to the 19th of October 2024, and the theme this year is healthy soil. So there's a lot there that I suppose are kind of relevant for both things. Final speaker is for Ulster, and Kathy McKnight from the Holy Family Primary School in Omagh.
Hello. Is that it?
Yeah, we can hear you, Kathy. Thank you.
Have you my slideshow?
Miriam has it. It's showing now.
Yeah, Kathy, you're ready to go ahead. Just call it when you want me to change the slide.
Oh, right. Sorry, I can't see it. That's the only thing. I still have the video, Monsters video.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why that's happening. Just give me a second. Sorry.
We could see it, Miriam, the rest of us.
Oh, could you? Me who can't see?
Okay. Yeah, we can all see it.
Yeah, we can see it. Okay. Well, that'll be fun for me. I'll just try and wing it then. So I suppose, is it if I tell you when to change the slides then, Miriam, would that work?
Sure.
So my name is Kathy McKnight, and I teach P6 and 7 in a primary school in Omagh. So the second slide, sorry. So we have a split site. So we were 2 schools amalgamated, and the junior site has the children up until P4, so they're 8, and then the senior site has the children who are 8 till 11. So we've about 400 children, about 200 on our site. And we're a green and eco schools, green flag school. So we very much care about the environment, But if we were honest, we were probably lacking in the growing and that. We were brilliant at recycling and doing all the other things, but we probably needed to work on the part of growing. Okay, so the next slide. We had this huge space on the senior site at the top. And I used to go to this primary school, and it hadn't changed in 30 years. It was still a huge blank area that was unused. It's very wet, so that for most of the year the children weren't able to go on it. And there was just tarmac yards on the other side of that. So it left it, if you didn't want to play football, there was very little for the children to do as well. But there was so much potential, and it was annoying me. I knew there could be more for the children. The next slide. So the obstacles we face, because we're an inner town school, is we had a lot of vandalism, and we did start a polytunnel project for growing, and it was actually set on fire. So all our efforts were destroyed, and in previous time trees were damaged, and it knocks your confidence, and it knocks the school's willingness to maybe invest or fund something. So that was a huge problem. The security of the site, and in all honesty, we had no expertise. I knew I really wanted to do all this, but didn't really know what I was doing. And nobody else was really interested in school. We used to have a board. Our chair of governors was very much into the grounds and growing, and he passed, and he was the only other one who maybe was interested in it. And the time constraints of school and busy, that is a reality, you know, and more and more is put in primary schools, and it's hard, you know, to just carve out that time. The next slide. But I was determined that we were going to do it. I didn't know how, but there's just so much opportunities to learn outside, and the children need to be outside. And growing food is something, I know that's the theme of this, but you know, in recent years it's become more and more obvious that we need to grow, and that skills our ancestors had easily, and we've let it slip, and that is real learning. And just the children's mental health, you know, in the town schools, some children don't have a garden. They go home from school, they're inside all evening, they're gaming, and maybe not much social interaction. So I felt strongly that this would benefit our school. The next slide. But how was I going to do it? So these were the big things for me: was funding, permission, space, plan, and an action. I knew we had permission, and I knew we had the space, and I knew kind of a plan in my head, but I needed money. That's the truth. You need funding. So the next slide. I was on maternity leave, and I applied for the school pollinator grant through the Live Here, Love Here initiative in the north, and I was successful in securing about £12,000. So that was brilliant. And I got another £500 through ASDA community grants, and I got a tree pack through DC or Orchards for Schools, and our local Menshed community group were also willing to take on the labour, and that's very cheap, affordable labour as well. And so this was making it promising and achievable, really. So the next slide. Then it was the plan, and I drew my dream garden, and I stuck to it. And it's not easy, because it did seem mammoth, but I did have Orla Sally come to the garden, and she says, yeah, maybe like 3 years. So this was a dream for 3 years, but once I started going and the team came on board, we were able to achieve a lot. And I would say that to everybody, is just think big and dream big, and stick to your guts. And it is a working project, and I think every garden even next year you would change something that's part of, we grow with the garden, and it's meant to evolve and change, and what works and what doesn't. And that's the beauty of it, I think. And the next slide. So these were the things in the plan that I intended, and I very much am inspired by Mary Reynolds and her ARC, and I see Cork are too. You know, and bringing back the wild and our native plants and trees, and that was the aim of the garden. And so these were the things that I wanted to include, and we're in the dream garden plan, to create a sensory garden and a pond and the rainwater system. And I know people thought that it was mad and maybe not all achievable, but you know, I think once a ball starts rolling and people come on board, it really, the dream does become a reality quite quickly. So I purchased the native trees and fruit trees from Future Forests. I also was very blessed to have local people give cuttings, or I know Orla brought trees as well, and free tree packs. So we were blessed to have all of that as well. I'm conscious I don't want to waste too much time talking. But the next thing was getting hands involved. So we got the next slide. Sorry, Mariam. Parents in the wider community. So we had a tree planting day, and it had been snowing the week before, and everybody in school said nobody's going to turn up. Nobody's going to turn up. And there were so many parents, so many people want the garden for their children. And it was amazing to see the children planting a tree that they can watch grow with them, or come back and see, or their younger brothers and sisters can see. And we made a willow tunnel, and we have a lot of willow actually on our school grounds. So we were able to harvest that and reuse it to create a dome and fencing as well. So we were making use of that. We had a hedgerow workshop, so we purchased a hedgerow and we were able to plant that. And we had Orla Sally from the community gardens that support us with these workshops as well. And then we had a wildflower meadow. So Debbie from True Harvest Seeds was giving me a lot of advice about native wildflower, and so we had a workshop on that. I'll come back to that a wee bit later, because that was one of our wee tricky points, but we were able to get the wildflower meadow area up and going. The next slide. So this is our journey, and this shows a path which actually held up a bit of the garden, because we contemplated making that accessible for all. And we talked about the inclusivity of the garden and maybe having that wheelchair accessible. But for now it is wood chip, and I actually like it being natural, if I was honest. But I'll let you see the next wee photo. So this is the children hard at work, and the children were involved every step of the way. They planted the trees, they wheelbarrowed the wood chippings back and forth, they sowed seeds, everything they did. They painted the signs, and they loved every single second of it. And the behavior issues, they just adored it. And they were fighting over whose class was going to get out. And at the start, it was nobody wanted anything to do with the garden. And then everybody wanted to be in the garden. And that's, it catches, because it feels good to be outside. And they're getting to, physical work also benefits the boys immensely. And they took ownership of the garden. And because they worked hard in it, they respected it and looked after it. And the vandalism has stopped. They're respecting everything. They don't want anything to be damaged because they worked hard for it. So we grow together and we learn together, and we're continuing to grow and learn. That's the truth.
Just a minute here, Kathy, please. Just
okay, sorry.
Fantastic, but
just some of the challenges was lack of commitment and interest. I'm saying time constraints as a teacher. and convincing other people. The big thing was EA was coming out and spraying the garden. I had constant battles with them. I didn't want it sprayed. I didn't want, or leave the grass and then they'd cut it, and this kind of thing. So that was actually the biggest. The wildflowers was conflicting advice, lift all the soil instead of maybe planting in. So that was an issue. But on the whole, we really achieved our goal. And what we learned was the children love the garden, and the Mother Nature does its thing. She looked after the garden even when maybe we weren't getting there, and to ask for help. Find your tribe. I found mine who supported the ARC and supported my goals and worked hard for the school, and together we achieved it all. So I'll skip to the video because that's what everybody probably wants to see the most. So it's the school garden project. Miriam, I can't see. You can let me know when it's over, Miriam. And Miriam, there's a wee video on the last slide. It just shows is that done? Oh, thanks.
That's it. Were you finished?
There was just a wee video of the food on the last slide of the children making the food from, but
I'll try to get that up. Sorry, 2 seconds.
Sorry. If you click on the children, yeah, is it working?
I think this is it here.
It's the very last slide. It just showed the children foraging, making jam, using the vegetables to make soup, and just the food, harvesting the food and making it. So it speaks for itself. That was the aim of and one of the goals, and it was achieved, and they loved every minute.
That's fabulous, Kathy. Would you be okay if people wanted us to share that video with them afterwards?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's great, and that'll give people a chance to go over.
No bother. Thank you. Yes, of course. Of course.
Really, really inspiring. Thank you so much. And Patricia.
Thank you.
Kathy, that was incredible. Yeah, it's someone had the comment in there saying it's brilliant to see all your hard work pay off and your dream come to fruition. I also have a feeling that there's no jam left because I've got 3 kids and I imagine anything that was made was probably devoured. But no, listen,
Really
thank you.
enjoyed.
Absolutely amazing. One thing kind of want to say is we have our friends in quickcrop.ie. So they have given something they've given us a commitment to give something to each of the 4 presenters as a thank you, because you've all given your time up on a Saturday and probably the week or 2 beforehand to pull these slides together. So they're going to send on some seed trays and I think some feed as well and to send over to you. So we'll be in contact with you after this, but just want to say thank you. That's just a small thank you, and thank you to Quick Crop for donating that as well. And since I'm mentioning quickcrop.ie, any community garden or any community group that's signed up to the Community Gardens Ireland map is eligible for a 10% discount from quickcrop.ie. So again, thank you for them for giving us that. If you want to have any more information on that, you can email us at info@cgireland.org. That's info@cgireland.org, and we can tell you about how that works. Connor, Miriam, we're okay to go for Q&A now, are we? You're on mute.
I
there,
think
Connor.
we'll see. I think we're going to save the Q&A for the breakout rooms.
Okay.
We've run over about great presentations. I think we'll go straight to Patricia now for her bit, and then we'll be on to the speakers because we're after 12 o'clock.
Okay. I was just going to say a little bit about our progress with policy. Over an 18-month period, Social Farms and Gardens, with Miriam as the lead researcher, did some primary research into the community growing spaces in Northern Ireland and what were the barriers to creating a community growing space. And we did that in collaboration with our members and also with the support of Donal in Community Gardening Ireland, because they were also looking at policy. We got a little bit of funding on top of our lottery funding from the Urban Agriculture Consortium in the UK to invite speakers from other parts who have progressed with policy, and also to ensure that it was a co-design process and that all of the 11 councils in Northern Ireland were involved in some way or other. So it was a painstaking process, but Miriam got the bit between her teeth, and she eventually got every local council to have a representative at our policy influencer network meetings. And these were, quarterly or bi-monthly, but they did gather up an interesting group from across Northern Ireland. And as we looked at our legislation, very out of date, the 1932 Allotments Act we're talking about, we knew that this was important work, and that if this research could come up with recommendations on the amount of land that should be set aside for community growing in our local council areas, and also recommendations on what support those projects need to be a success, that it would be an important document. So I don't know if you have it there, Miriam. We had a slide of it, but it's this book here on right. There's quite a lot in it, but the main recommendation is that 1/3 of an acre of land should be provided for every 1,000 households. And that's public land that would be community managed. And that's public bodies working together. So we heard some lovely projects there in the education sphere, but then we've got our public land that councils own. We've got our housing authorities and housing associations. And so the whole realm, the whole public realm can be put on the map. It'd be good to map this and make up this recommendation of 1/3 of an acre for every 1,000 households. The other recommendations were really the support that is required, because we don't want land handed to communities that is not suitable. So there's criteria. Communities have to want to grow, and they have to be involved in where that growing takes place. It has to be accessible. It has to be supported. There has to be some community development support in there, whether it's from the council or organisations like ourselves. There has to be a proportionate community asset transfer, because land, all our projects are in land, however small and voluntary or more formal with staff, they're all on land. So all these projects immediately come into a complex discussion with that public landowner. Sometimes it goes very smoothly, but often it's slow and the enthusiasm wanes of the volunteers. So we're trying to oil that process as well so that it happens, the wheels turn quicker, which is no mean feat. But we are making progress, and we're delighted to tell you that Belfast City Council adopted these recommendations in January. And this is going to be part of the Belfast agenda. And they're also adopting the Right to Grow policy there. And there is a planned cross-sectoral community forum underneath the arch of the Belfast Sustainable Food Partnership. And we want to make sure that this work gets into our local development plans and community planning processes, which to date are not that successful, but we want to be the first to be successful. And really, I think the success so far has been because of the groundwork of the co-design process with all the councils involved. So that's just a little summary of our work. I know that we're now going to hear, and Donald's going to introduce our next speaker, just to give you a flavour of what is happening in the south.
Patricia, that's brilliant. Thank you for that update. It's absolutely such a massive step for Belfast City Council to adopt that right to grow. It's I almost can't put it into words. I think you mentioned as well, it's the second local authority in the UK and Ireland to actually have done. I think Hull might have done this as well. But just in terms of the steps forward for local communities, that's absolutely gigantic. So our next speaker is Mark O'Cosig. So he is a TD in Waterford. So Community Gardens Ireland, we've been working with Mark for quite a number of years. In 2021, we gave a presentation to an Oireachtas committee, which has a name so long I'm not even going to mention it. But we gave a presentation on a number of things, including requesting improved access to land for community gardens, for community gardens to be mentioned in law, for a number of different items kind of came up. And I suppose since then we've been working on with a number of initiatives. So Mark, I was just got a message from there. You're online, is that right?
I'm online. Are you hearing me there all right, Donald?
All good.
Perfect.
Floor is yours.
Joining you from the salubrious surrounds of my Citron Picasso, which is the life of a TD, where I'm actually out doing a little bit of canvassing ahead of the referendum that's happening later this week. But that's fine. I'll keep that canvassing for the doors. Listen, I'm really delighted to be joining you today. I was listening with interest to Patricia and that work that they're doing on the Right to Grow. And Patricia, you can be expecting to hear from me, because I think that's a really powerful piece of work that you're doing, really relating it down into communities, and really kind of, I suppose, explaining to local authorities what their commitments in terms of community gardens should look like. And I guess that's really where we're coming from with this piece of legislation. So as Donald said, Community Gardens Ireland did an absolutely excellent submission to one of the committees of which I'm a member, which is the Social Protection, Community and Rural Development and Islands. I've remembered the full bit, Donald, but I'm a long time on that committee. So it was an excellent piece of work, and talking about the power of community gardens in terms of community development. And I don't need to rehearse that to anybody here. I see Justina is on as well. She's done a fantastic job in Waterford around, look, community gardens, it's not that the growing is incidental, but the growing is only one part of what a community garden is doing. It's really growing the community as well as growing your fruit and vegetables and whatever else. So the submission was excellent in terms of outlining that kind of community cohesion part. But what I thought was really interesting, or jumped out to me as a legislator, was the fact that we don't have this properly legislated for in an Irish context. And I said, well, that's something that I can usefully engage with and usefully interact with. So taking a cue from really that submission and having come back to Donal a couple of times on it, I've put together a piece of private members business, the private members bill for community gardens, which I introduced in the Dáil some time ago. And it does essentially two main things. Firstly, it defines a community garden legally under law. That doesn't exist within the Irish context yet. There are legal definitions of allotments, but not for community gardens. Something I find slightly unsatisfactory about the law that I've put together, if I'm to criticise my own law. I worked with the parliamentary drafters within Leinster House, within the Oireachtas, and they like very clearly defined things. They like very, very clearly defined concepts because they're putting it on a legal footing. What I think we all know is that community gardens and allotments aren't actually terribly clearly defined, particularly between one another. They tend to bleed into one another a little bit. That, you know, there'll be a little bit of allotmenteering happening. There'll be, you know, people will have reserved a corner of a raised bed, but there'll also be that community element. Be that as it may, the definitional piece is one of the main things that my bill strives to do. The second important part is about placing an obligation on the local authority. So this is about, it ties in with what Patricia was talking about demand, to show that there is a demand within a community. And then once that demand is proven, to then place an obligation on the local authority to provide for that demand. So this would have been very much taking my cue from Donal and that piece of work that CGI has done, to ask that local authorities be obliged to maintain a waiting list, so that when somebody expresses an interest, either in allotments or in community gardens, that there be an obligation to maintain a waiting list so that we can see the demand. Because I think all too often when you approach a local authority, they'll say, well, really, do enough people want to get involved in this? Maintaining the waiting list puts that onus on the local authority, so then you can subsequently prove, and I firmly believe that there is the demand within communities for allotments and for community gardens. So that is the basic thrust of my piece of private members business. The latest news, where that is, because I spoke to Donal about this before, as a government backbencher, it's a long road from your bit of PMB making it all the way through to law. So if you want to actually be realistic and you want to progress, you have to find other opportunities. The planning bill, which is a mammoth piece of work, is currently at committee stage in the Dáil, and working with Stephen Matthews, who's the chair of that committee, and a Green Party TD like myself, we decided that was a place where we were going to take the definitional piece, not the piece about the waiting lists, because it would have been rejected, quite honestly, if we put in the waiting list bit. It's not the right bill for that obligation to be put in. But we said, here's a great opportunity to put in the definition. And so we took the work that the parliamentary drafters had done, we presented it to the minister, and actually it came up to be discussed just on Thursday morning. And so this is news that's fresh off the presses. Delighted to report that the minister, and this is the formula that ministers use at committee stage, they'll never accept your amendment. They'll say, we're going to take it away and have our drafters inserted properly within the bill. But the minister committed to bringing it back at report stage, bring it back at the next stage of the bill. And essentially, once we have the planning and development bill passed by the House of the Oireachtas, we will, for the first time, now have a definition of community gardens within that bill. So that gives us a hook. It's not going to change the world. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have a place to plant me turnips next Tuesday, but it provides a legislative hook so that we can then build on that. We can point to it. We can say, here it is. It's now defined in law. Now let's look at what obligations we can put on local authorities. And in fact, we may not need legislation at all. Once we have something defined, we can say, look, this exists within the law. Maybe we can do it then by regulation through the minister. So that's what I'm hoping for in any case. So it couldn't be much fresher in terms of news. It only happened on Thursday morning. It shows the value of constructive work. I mean, as Donal said, it's a couple of years since Donal and I first spoke on this. These things take longer than maybe they should ought to do, but it's a good positive development. Delighted to see it come to fruition. We'll get a definition of community gardens in Irish legislation for the first time, and from there, let's use it as a lever so that we see more and more of these community gardens springing up in our communities.
Mark, that's brilliant. Listen, thank you for the update. Thank you for definitely your support over the last number of years, and don't go anywhere, because we're going to keep talking to you to make sure that those next steps are followed up on as well. But listen, thank you for your time today as well, particularly from your Citroen Picasso. And listen, we'll be talking to you soon, I'm sure, over the coming weeks.
Thanks, Donal.
Excellent. So we're not going to have Q&A now, but we're going to go straight on to Hans Sommer. So Hans, just looking for you to give a presentation about the Global Action Plan and the great work that you're doing there.
Thank you very much, Donal. I'm not talking from my car. I'm talking from my daughter's bedroom. But it's great to be here. It's my first time attending this event. And I'm going to echo a lot of what people have said. Do you have my presentation?
I did receive it. I don't know if Miriam did, but if not, if you have it yourself.
I have it. Now you're challenging my my skills in presenting.
I don't have it. I'm sorry, Hans, but there you go. Yeah.
Here we go. You can see this now, can you?
See GAP and community gardens. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm talking to you from a Global Action Plan. We're an environmental behavior change organization. We're based in Ballymun in Dublin, and we've been around for just over 20 years. We were born as a local initiative in the Ballymun community, inspired by the 1992 Rio Conference on Sustainable Development. And we really came to life when the Social Regeneration Project in Ballymun started. And we were essentially a local group of people who wanted to make sure that to build more pride of place in the Ballymun community, and so we did, our initial work was all about keeping litter and recycling, and we were one of the driving forces behind Ballymun being the first fair trade town in Ireland. And as part of that, we started a community garden, or we started several actually in the Ballymun area. We have one left. The other one other ones are properly managed by the local community. But what is different about the one that we still manage ourselves is that we have an actual part-time employed horticulturist looking after the garden. So we have paid staff managing our community garden, and I think that's really important. The lessons that we've learned are very much the same ones that the previous speakers have been talking about. That community gardens, they can be so many different things for different people, and I suppose they're not primarily, most of them are not primarily about the plants. They are about the people. As an organization, that's where our focus is. We believe that everybody can make a difference. So we work with community groups and schools and businesses to try and help them develop tangible local responses to global issues. So issues like global poverty, biodiversity loss, climate change, etc. We're trying to help people discover their potential, their power to make a difference. All of these are complex global issues that are usually very overwhelming and depressing. And what we're trying to do is to try and help people to understand those global phenomena, and then try and develop local responses to them. And we do that in a number of ways. The picture that you're looking at is actually our climate competition. And actually, this is my invitation to all of you today to join that competition. It's called the Climate Heroes Competition. It's a 2-week challenge in April for community groups. It's free of charge to enter. And over a 2-week period, you're going to be competing with community groups all over Ireland in who can reduce their carbon footprint the most. So have a look at climateheroes.ie. But as I said, yeah, our focus is on behavior change, very much like so many of the other people have spoken before and who are attending this meeting. Yeah, we're trying to use community gardens as part of that equation. So in 2012, we were given a piece of land by the local church in Ballymun to try and develop a space where people could learn about the environment. And that's in the beginning, that's what we did. It was really about helping people grow their own vegetables. But over time, it morphed into a proper community garden where everything is shared. It's not that, you know, the one vegetable bed is for such and such group, etc. We share everything. But also over time, it morphed much more into a social inclusion project. The emphasis on growing vegetables and on environmental education, I suppose, was downplayed in favor of making sure that this was a place where everybody could be themselves. And so at the moment, we have about 240 individuals on the WhatsApp group. We have a number of days and hours during the week where people can just drop in if they feel like it. We also have partnership with 4 different organizations like St. Michael's House or the Central Remedial Clinic, who have specific time slots allotted to them so that they can have the garden to themselves. Last year, we had 114 different events in the garden. But it's not just about the garden. The garden is, I suppose, the hub for the whole program, and it's an outreach program with the local schools, local community groups, etc. So we do the gardener that we have. She also is in charge of a program working with communities and resident associations of just trying to green their own neighborhood, etc. We have a education worker who's working with the 6 schools in the area. We take the kids out to the local park for a biodiversity program. We also, with the local secondary school, we have a program based on what we've learned in the garden about how the school can do a whole of school sustainability project. And we also involve local companies to come and spend some time in the garden to help us out. Last year, we opened the second such social inclusion community garden in Blanchardstown in the west of Dublin. And you know, that has grown very much as well. In just 1 year, we now have 19 regular volunteers who come in weekly. We had 4 public workshops there, 86 sessions during the year. So quite a busy place already. But it's more than a numbers game. I want to echo what Mark and Donal have been saying about, and Patricia as well, about the research, the importance of research. So I said one of the defining characteristics of our GLAS program is that we have a paid staff member looking after the project. And that we can do that because we have a partnership with the local authority. So in the case of the Ballymun, it's Dublin City Council, and the other one is Fingal County Council, and they support us in that project. And they do so because in response to research that we've done. For instance, last year we asked the TU Dublin to evaluate our Ballymun garden, and where they found that people come to the garden for so many different reasons. Pretty much everybody who's coming has a different reason to come. Some people come for mental health reasons. Some people want to because they want to boost their CV. We have a lot of people from the local direct provision center and the international protection applicants who come there because they want to give something back to the community or just meet people. So there are many different reasons why people need community gardens and why they want to be involved in it, and they also have their very different benefits that they derive from it. And it was really good for us to be able to document that by interviewing current garden users and people who used to visit the garden in previous years. We also did some work on the link between mental health and access to nature, and both of our gardens are in an urban setting, and the surrounding communities are underprivileged, or I'd like to say underappreciated. For a lot of the people, like what Kathy was saying, they don't have gardens of their own. So this is the only place of access that they have to greenery, really. and the benefits for their health and their mental health are enormous. And so when we get the definition of community gardens in legislation, we also, I think we should work together as CGI members and to make the case for community gardens, not just as an individual garden, but as for the concept as a whole and the benefits of it. And you're welcome to use our research. Yeah, so I suppose of the lessons that we've learned is really that it's important to try and be able to make the case for what we're doing. All of the activities that we've heard about in the various community gardens, they're incredibly important and inspirational. We also need to translate that into building relations with the local authorities, local companies as well, and national politicians. So I think, I suppose what we're trying to make sure is that there are social inclusion gardens in every county in Ireland. And it sounds like when we work together, we can definitely achieve that together. So that's, I know you've been listening to many talks, so I'll stop talking now and we can probably get to the proper discussion. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Hans, thank you so much for giving your time, particularly on a Saturday on this. I think what you said at the end there summarized everything in the fact that we need to work together. Everyone here in the variety of different organizations that we're involved with, we just need to work together to make sure we're getting more of these spaces delivered. So listen, thank you for a great presentation, and I'm going to open the floor now for questions. There was one which did come in, which was a question for Kathy. And it was, I don't know if it was answered in the chat, but I was wondering about how Kathy overcame the spraying issue, as I see it. So it looks like I think the Education Authority was doing this. Someone was commenting that they help campaign, yeah, they're working on campaigns on pesticide reduction. So I'm kind of interested in wins on this issue. So Kathy, are you still there?
I think she had to nip away there, Donal, but
okay.
she may come back later.
Okay, Orla, you wouldn't be able to give any insight to that by any chance?
Very briefly, she would have been out saying, "Go away, stop, do not." She really did. She was out fighting with them. I have been fighting with them myself, even at schools. I mean, I some people know that I'm a beekeeper as well, and I was collecting my own children from school. The grass was covered in clover, and they were out spraying. And I literally dashed home because my bees were out flying that day, and I lost thousands of bees. And I know it's related to that spraying. So you imagine what that is for our children. So huge issue that needs addressed. It's privatized as well. So it's very hard for schools to have any say. They're kind of tied into, well, it's not going to get done if it's not done our way. And that's what Kathy is now doing. So her and she has a great fellow that looks after the school, the actual building. He's out. He's a farmer. He cuts the grass now. So, and his own time. I have to say that he's not paid to do this extra work, and that's what they're doing. I know Dimpton is on here somewhere. We all try and go around and help, and they get people in, but it needs addressed at a bigger level. I think you can't do it by one person in one school. We need to have a collective and try and have a way of, I don't know, organizing it. But anyway, that's my wee. Sorry.
Could I come in, Donal? Because I asked the question. I'm Bernie Connolly. I work with Cork Environmental Forum, but we dip in and out of support for different community gardens. Yeah, so we're working on this issue, and I think it's another issue. You've been really good with your policy issue there, and having the minister or work on this. But I think that this is another area, like the European Commission has just withdrawn the sustainable use regulation. So how can we work on this issue, I suppose, across the island of Ireland to try to reduce the spraying, because we see it everywhere. And I think we have the same problem here with the Department of Education. So it's something that might be a thing to take up at some stage with the department as a collective, because, obviously children are the most vulnerable to these toxic chemicals, and we really need to do something about it. So it's very difficult if people are trying to do it on a garden by garden basis with every school and
every community.
I have one actually suggestion on this, and Community Gardens Ireland, we're a member organisation of the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, and as part of that, we do a yearly report out on our actions, and even things like starting discussions on less herbicide and pesticide use is something that is beneficial. But one thing I asked the All Ireland Pollinator Plan would they be interested in preparing a short resource on community gardens and allotments and community growing spaces, and they've agreed to it. So it's something that we haven't announced, we haven't publicized, because it's something that we want to still kind of to figure out what's to go into it. But I think that's an easy way where advice is given out to allotments and community gardens all over the island of Ireland about how best to not use herbicide, and what other solutions are there, and how people kind of make sure that these green areas are kept as pollinator friendly as possible. So I think that's a good way to go about it. If anyone is interested in helping us on this, because it'll just be, again, because we're all volunteers, we'll be doing it in our spare time. But if it's something that you're interested in helping out with, again, get in contact with us at info@cgireland.org. That's info@cgireland.org, and we're gonna see what that looks like. But hopefully that'll be a good path forward. Go ahead, Patricia.
I think also there's levers further up the system, as Orla was saying there, that we need to tackle, because it is privatized, it is contracted out. So one time you're talking to one person and they might say okay, and then the next time it's somebody else. So it doesn't change, it's an ongoing problem. So it is something for us to think about, discussing at a higher level now. We've had enough of this. Even people that don't grow are saying they don't want it. They don't want weed killer all around their pavements and everywhere. So yeah, it's definitely one to note. I am aware, Donal, that it would be good to go to the breakout rooms, because people can have smaller conversations, because we've such a large group here. Should we do that now?
Sure. Just
yeah.
before we do that, and just in case anyone drops off or anything else, just to remind everyone that we're having the Community Gardens Ireland AGM at 1 o'clock, or just a few minutes after 1 o'clock. And as mentioned, we're all volunteers, so if anyone's interested in helping out, we welcome anyone who's able to help out with any kind of skill set that you can bring to it. So, but listen, yeah, if people can kind of come on back and make sure that you're here for the AGM, it'll be a very short one, but it'll be good. Okay, so Patricia, Connor, Miriam, do you want to do the organization for splitting out people now, please?
Yeah, so
relying on Miriam's technical ability here,
which are limited, honestly. But so I have just I have Connor, Miriam, Ellie, Orla, Donal, Patricia, Maria, and I think Jenny as well. So those are the breakout rooms. So you'll get a, is that okay? So you'll get an invitation to join the room, and Justina, sorry, as well there. You'll get an invitation in a second to join the rooms. So if you'd like to join the room. Let me see. Welcome back.
Hello, Miriam.
Hello.
Sorry, I was in Connor's group. I managed to get myself cut off there. I don't know what happened with me.
That's okay. I think maybe you just got pulled back in because we're closing the breakout rooms now. So
okay, that's okay.
Hopefully everybody found that useful. We're just being joined by everybody again.
Okay.
I was myself with Caroline and with Lucy Bell. We had some nice discussion about plans for the future. We mentioned about the community gardens and allotment weeks that is going to take place in October. We talk about various things about our communities. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy and Caroline.
Thank you. Have we time for a little bit of feedback, or do we need to
1 minute?
It's like 30 seconds from each of the rooms.
Okay, I can hop in. We had a great discussion about from Raheny, from County Down and from Kildare. And a big takeaway was, what can CGI Network do for organisations based and community groups based in those areas? And lobbying came up really strong. The benefits of an all-Ireland network is having somebody who has the back of all these smaller but vibrant community groups to speak up to their local councils about anti-spraying and anti-grass cutting, and campaigns like "Don't put concrete on your back garden." So thank you so much to everybody in my group. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks, Molly. Justina, could you report back from yours?
Yes, hi. We had Vicky, Camilla, Grania, Dee, and Siobhan, and thank you everyone for that discussion. It was great. A few things, we discussed a few things that were, well, I'd say came out from the discussions and presentations, and one of them was something that we should probably consider for the future, to implement a pesticide ban, or to maybe support the idea of a pesticide ban within community gardens, maybe within community gardens across the whole island.
Brilliant. Thank you. We're going 30 seconds for each, so that's great. Donal?
Cool, thanks. I had John and Adrian, loads of motivation from Katrina's presentation. Edible landscapes, need to spread that across all ETBs. Very impressed with Kathy. Good to see the warts and all, but positive and negative, and how she works with Men's Shed, where there's maybe that local skill sets isn't there. The heritage element of community growing, so seeing jam making as well, that might be a lost skill set, and great to see the next generation doing it. The actual reusing of materials as well. So where a local playground was taken away, we were talking about reusing the tiles for another purpose. And love the mental health therapeutic, getting people engaged, so beneficial. Also think that if all ETBs were associated with local community growing projects, allotments and community gardens, that'd be really beneficial. And also love the Global Action Plan Climate Heroes. That's probably 30 seconds.
Thank you. Connor?
Yeah, just and with Anne, Natalia, Lisa, Kathy, and myself, we're just saying about, it was just like the linking across the possibly connect the two gardens up for a piece of work to be done and drawing up a plan, which is really good. And yeah, the addressing the spraying and dealing with authorities at a higher level, because we have a very strong voice when we come together that individuals can't do. And it was so fantastic to see how all our people do their stuff, and that there's more than one way to grow a vegetable.
Great. Orla? You just gonna unmute yourself there?
Sorry, couldn't quite click it there. Yes, I was in a group. A few people had to go off, so we had a lot of mute. So there was myself, Ellen, Kate, and Tara, and we had a great discussion. We kind of, first of all, it was about the community gardens and allotments definition, and Ellen gave a great wee rundown of what she believed it was, and I never even had to step on it. It was great. We also talked about the spraying as well. We talked about the gardens, what we talked about, and today, all the inspiration ideas, also about the importance of CGI as well, and maybe helping with funding and links to different things. So we refer to the website and that. And yeah, a policy really around the spraying. So just like everybody else, it was quite important. And also the fact that community gardens, it's all about well-being and our mental health, and that was probably one of the key aspects for maybe funding under the HSC and that kind of thing. So yeah, we had lots of discussion. Hopefully I've covered it all, and that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Patricia?
Yeah, we had a good spread from across the island, and I suppose the point was that these climate action plans that are coming out in Ireland, you have to make sure that community gardens are in there, have a look through them and make sure that they are, and talked a bit about behaviour change and system change. And then we heard about John's trip in 2016 as part of CGI going to Cuba, and we learned a word called organoponico, which is a growing organically in neighborhoods in Havana, in cities and across Cuba because of necessity. But maybe we have to go backwards to go forwards. And 80% of food grown in Cuba is organic. We learned that as well. So very, very hopeful.
Thank you, Maria.
Yep. Hi, we had a good spread as well. We talked briefly about the climate action plans, and we hope that they're not just going to be about emissions, but they're going to include food. I'm talking about Cork now in particular. So we talked about the food hub and food security. We talked about the importance of schools and every child learning how to grow food. And what happens then, though, when the school closes? Is there any way that the public can have access to school growing areas? But then it was thought one way of overcoming this was to grow perennials, late fruiting or very early fruiting shrubs, fruit bushes, etc. We also talked about vandalism in public sort of community gardens that are very public and open, and how really sometimes this sounds worse than what it actually is, that by and large with presence you kind of mitigate against vandalism. That's been our experience, and that was it.
Brilliant, thank you. Is Jenny there?
I am here, yep. So yeah, we had a great discussion from Mari, Vanessa, Dimna and Yvonne, and it was lovely to hear about all their projects, the things that inspired them were the progress that had been made, for example, in the Edible Landscapes project. Another inspirational thing inspired was amazing work with simple things, don't always need funding. However, that was the other end of that was brought up in the frustration with volunteerism and that grassroots isn't enough, and we do need funding, at the bigger scale projects. And then, we do, in order to stop weed killer or spraying or whatever issue we may have, we do need to pull all these separate areas together and work together, and that's where these networking events are really, really useful going forward. So yeah, we had a great discussion there. Thanks to everyone.
Thanks so much. And is Ellie last?
Yeah, hi Miriam. Yeah, we had a great old chat. Good spread from Cork, Dublin, Galway, Tyrone. The spraying, of course, came up. Very emotional subject for everyone. I think we all agree, and we'll have to combine our efforts to work harder on this. I think it also there was a good spread as well of gardens and projects that had paid workers or not paid workers, and so we kind of discussed what the benefits were to this, or kind of affect the balance between your volunteers and the community spirit. So I suppose that's another conversation. We find that it's generally beneficial, but also that gardens that are completely voluntary run find their own way of find their own mojo. Climate change and the climate action plan came up, and in terms of the seasonal the timings of certain, starting certain seeds and growing different plants, and so-called annuals not dying off. So there was a question about could we map this or track this somehow, and the suggestion was that possibly Gary's work in Louth, it looks like it might be addressing this, and if there was some possible template that we could all kind of share our thoughts and our experiences on this. Yeah, I suppose that's probably enough for this. There's loads more, but yeah.
Great,
good.
thank you. And just to say, yeah, so thank you so much for, we'll try to write this up and we'll share it with everybody who registered. And I'll pass over to Donal, is that right?
I just want to finish, sorry, just before we finish, the group that I have mentioned as well, the importance of education, but I just want to see Lucy and Caroline, just to mention their names, Caroline from the Jacks Mill Forest Gardens in Wicklow and Lucy Bell from Kildare. And we had another member, but she left. Thank you. And that is Miriam.
Thanks, Miriam. So listen, we're just going to finish up now before we go on to the Community Gardens Ireland AGM. And just on behalf of Community Gardens Ireland, I just want to say thank you for joining this part. This is one of our highlights of the year, doing this event, and you can see, I think, the interest that we have in this, the interest that we have seen from all of you as well in today's session. Thank you to everyone who gave up their time to make presentations ahead of today. Thank you for everyone getting involved in the sessions. A huge thank you to Miriam for actually organising and doing the planning behind this as well. So And just thank you to all our friends in Social Farms Garden Northern Ireland. We're stronger by working together. So and that's what we hope to keep doing. So please stay on for the AGM for Community Gardens Ireland. Patricia, do you want to say anything, or Miriam, do you want to say anything from Social Farms Garden Northern Ireland point of view?
Yeah, big thank you. Miriam, go ahead.
Well, Connor did all the work for this, so don't be thanking me. But yeah, no, just thank you. Like all of the work we've done. We couldn't have done it without our members and the input of our members into the kind of stuff that we're trying to turn into policy recommendations. So thanks to them, and thanks to CGI for all of the collaborative work over the last few years. We've definitely found it supportive and inspiring.
Yeah, and I think in the world that we're living in at the moment, it's just so important that we connect across borders, and that we're just delighted to do so. And we'd just like to wish Donal all the best, because he has been chair for the last 3 years, Donal, is it? And you've been absolutely fantastic, and you're going to step down now to do important political work, I hear. But we just would like to congratulate you on bringing forward policy in your 3 years from having none to achieving what was talked about this morning. Has just been brilliant. Thank you, and thank you for being so good to work with. You always respond with loads of information. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Patricia. I'm not going too far, so don't worry. Yeah, so listen, thank you everyone. Let's jump straight over to the Community Gardens Ireland AGM then.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to stay on, let's you're more than welcome.
We'll leave.